Bonjour Nektarios, it's been such a long time, I'm so happy to see you again.
Good to see you too.
How have you been? So that's going to be the first question of the day. We're at Money20 in Amsterdam, it's pretty packed. You've been gone for quite a while, which is probably much needed with the crazy schedule you had and all the activity in the fintech world. Where is Nektarios those days and what is he doing?
I'm officially on a break, and I'm still on a break. I just decided to take a break from a break to come to Money20 and catch up with friends. It's really that. I was invited to speak at a session. I thought that's a good opportunity just to reconnect, see how the land lies, and decide if I like it or not.
So still, the jury's out still.
The jury's a bit out, yeah. I left after nearly 8 years of doing financial services innovation in various guises. I left because I really wanted to rethink what I was doing, because it started getting a little bit weird. And it's been good to have time for reflection. And it's interesting to have a bit of a reality check.
So London is still home, technically,
home, yes.
Even though you're still traveling probably a lot. So if we step back a bit, for people not familiar with you, it's probably not a few, just a few there. What have you done in the last, let's say, 10 years or?
Well, I had a very traditional corporate job with Swift. I started off in Deutsche Börse or but Swift was a defining period because the last 2.5 years of my life at Swift, I was part of something called InnoTribe, the first innovation initiative in the financial industry. My role within that was running the InnoTribe Startup Challenge, which was the first fintech competition. And then at the end of 2013, I left InnoTribe to launch Startup Bootcamp Fintech, the first collaborative fintech accelerator, very much in the same spirit of InnoTribe, influenced by InnoTribe. So that's what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is just building fintech programs around the world that are trying to bring in financial services institutions on the one side who have an appetite for innovation and are trying to do something, and on the other side, startups who are looking for access into the industry by running a program, an accelerator program that helps both sides. London, Singapore, New York, Mumbai, Mexico City, Dubai, Melbourne, Cairo, and I always forget one. Amsterdam, did I mention Amsterdam? We're here in Amsterdam. Roughly 10 between fintech and insurtech.
So very casually swept down,
Congratulations.
It was
world domination, yes.
The world domination. Very good. We're at Money20. You said so. You're coming back here, or just at least to touch base with industry friends, and you've got a lot of those. We're at Money20. Why Money20? You said you had an opportunity to speak. So what are you going to talk about, and why did you choose then to accept this offer?
If you look at the landscape, there's only a very small number of really big events that's actually worth going to. And the thing I liked about Money20 from the beginning was it was a conference focusing on the future. So I grew up in Swift, we have Cybos, which at the beginning, Cybos, the OS in Cybos is Operations Symposium. So it was never about the future, it was about keeping things working. And Money20 was the opposite. Now, when it launched 4 years ago, it was the first one in Europe, and it was exciting. And it's interesting to see how it has evolved. And it's still the biggest event of its nature, I think, in Europe. And it comes with network. So you can go to other places if you want maybe to have a bit more meaningful discussion on certain aspects of the business, but the big package, it's the place to be.
So 3 days, you could be
Hardcore.
Stuck with a lot of meetings, great conversations, good insights from the industry. So
talk a lot, eat a lot, drink a lot, sleep little.
In that order, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, mostly. Okay, what are you going to talk about then? It's tomorrow, I believe.
So I want a panel tomorrow, which is about horizontal and vertical innovation. And when I saw the title, my first thought was, why the jargon? But then when you kind of start digging, you realize, okay, there's some meaning behind it, but ultimately, it's about the challenges that industry is facing in engaging or doing innovation, either by working with startups or by doing stuff themselves. But yeah, one of the reasons I'm a little bit jaded and a little bit frustrated with all of this is that there's a lot of jargon and there's a lot of noise. And a part of my reflection was also to look at how much have we contributed to the noise. But at the same time, yeah, it's a little bit, I think it's a good time maybe for also the audience of the conference to sit down and think, okay, what have we actually achieved? And where are we just peddling water?
Some kind of introspection. And,
guess what? That's not happening. There's a handful of people who keep writing about this publicly. And everybody keeps agreeing online, but when you start talking to people on the ground, in the field, there's very little progress. And it's really something that kind of makes you think, when you've been around for such a long time, thinking, all this noise, all this money, all this effort, all these conferences, where are the results?
And that's a great point, actually, which leads to another question when I took before that interview, right? What are the key challenges or the key challenge of the fintech industry, of fintech startups, but it's not maybe the fintech startups. What do you think? I mean, why are we still there? We struggle to drive meaningful, transformation and help the end customers. What's wrong? What needs to be fixed? Please, open up.
The startups are definitely not the problem, right? They're here for a reason, they're doing great things, they might make mistakes along the way, but I have very little to criticize about the startups. Okay. You use the word meaningful. I think the biggest problem is that all the institutions who are trying to do innovation ultimately don't really mean it. There's very little meaningful engagement. Mm-hmm. And this is quite a superficial response, but when you start digging deeper, I don't know any bank who has a real thought through, relevant innovation strategy for the business units that have the problems. Usually it's a group level, and when it's a group level, it never trickles down. The second thing is that people think they're doing innovation without even understanding how it translates. What does it mean? How do you measure the success of your activities? Favorite question for me is, you meet somebody who runs an innovation unit or innovation business, what are your success criteria? And that will give you very quickly an insight on how much they actually mean it, how relevant it is what they're doing. So for me, the biggest challenge in all of this is that the corporates still haven't managed to bridge the gap between the appetite and the capability. And most organizations haven't invested into building capability, and that means culture change, mind change, procurement processes, legal compliance, understanding what's a POC, but where does it need to commercialize, understanding the different stages of startups being relevant to them, and all of this. And I'm being very categorical about this. I can't name a single one of them.
None, worldwide.
Worldwide, maybe a couple.
Okay, okay. If we do share or not. That's interesting. I was in innovation at Lloyd's TSB back in 2007 and 8, which is another kettle of fish or different sense of innovation, which was much more inward focused. Innovation was like cost cutting, was integrating with another bank at the time. So, and I think we traveled a long way still, paradoxically, to that extent that now innovation maybe still doesn't drive any meaningful, like output or outcome for the clients, the customer. But still now it seems like it's much more and better connected with the senior management, which hopefully has to translate into some kind of more meaningful, for lack of better words, like result or better focus on what makes sense. But you're saying that despite that change, that switch, we're still not there yet for some reason yet.
Far from it. I mean, the C-suite gets it. And if you talk to the C-suite, usually you get real understanding of the problems. And then you get that layer below, the permafrost layer, who has no incentive. So it's not even the individuals, it's not even attacking the individuals, because they have no reason to do anything, right? They have no governance that forces them to do this, no incentive that encourages them to do that. And the shareholders have no real expectations. So as long as you meet some sort of quarterly results, why would you actually rock the boat, right? There's that, and there's a short-sightedness in that, right? But yeah, ultimately I agree with you.
Okay, that's interesting. I've always said yes, as long as you don't have like proper targets, balanced scorecard or exactly, why would you bother? Especially when the opportunity seems potentially very tiny or small, because you miss the long view and in the necessity almost to transform and to be more digital and to be more mindful of your customers. But I think yes, somehow you're totally right. I mean, people are missing that at the highest level, yeah. So then the next question is, why do they bother then having innovation functions or garages or
beanbags and post-its? As long as you have beanbags and post-its, you're covered. Why do they bother? Because there's pressure from the outside to be seen to be doing something.
Like a brand almost thing, it's perception.
Absolutely. You have to tick the box. Yeah. But that's the problem. You tick the box really well, right? But trying to get somebody in a bank to understand that innovation is not to have an app. Or even if you have an app, to build it properly, not to build it corporate style, or just hiring a digital agency is not going to change the problem, right? So it's a lot of it is box ticking, right? And it's suddenly you see this $100-200 million funds emerging that are managed by people from the bank who don't understand venture capital. You've got these presumed success stories that are just a series of POCs that are somewhere in the ether, and the startups still haven't seen any commercial engagements. So I'm very cynical about this. And the problem is you find great individuals who come into these roles and they do this for a while and then they leave because they're frustrated. Because realistically, who joins a bank? You don't join a bank because you're really motivated by change. You join a bank because you want a stable, predictable job to some extent. Therefore, a lot of the structures just perpetuate the process.
What will it take to change that? Is it even possible in the next 10 years, you reckon?
I think you should talk to some of the neobanks about that. They've got very strong views on what it takes. I think at the beginning people were very dismissive about all the challenger banks. But I think you slowly start seeing the potential of building a bank in a different way. And I think we should accept that some of the names we're used to will not be around for a very long time, and that's nothing wrong with that conceptually. Of course you care about the individuals, you care about people and their jobs, but conceptually some of the big ships will not be able to turn in time, and then they'll crash into a tourist boat in Venice Harbor.
So what's your view then on a branch network? Its value, what can you do with that?
Come on, that's a philosophical conversation. I think you can take both positions, and there's value in both. I think the key thing is that there's an element of self-importance that the banks have that at some point you need to be realistic about. There's nobody cares about their bank. They want to have a service that works for them, and they want it to be as transparent, but at the same time not noticeable as possible, right?
Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. We're going to wrap up soon. I know you're very busy. I remember that it's funny to be in the innovation fintech world. I don't know if you remember back in 2006, everybody talked about PFM. That was the rage,
yes,
which got implemented. Yes, no, then no adoption, limited adoption, very poor user experience. Nobody really managed to change the behaviors which they wanted to do initially, to equip their customers in a better way, to make them more wise, and then to shift them from a current account to savings to online investment and so on and so forth. 2019. What's going on? First of all, we don't talk about PFM anymore, so budgeting is gone. That's my sensation. And now with open banking, it blurs the water again more because everybody's talking about it, it's all the rage, but what's going to happen anytime soon? Something, yes, no, UK versus Europe versus the world. It's an, again, existential question maybe, but it's fascinating time.
Look, we're talking about an era where we have new business models enabled by new technologies. What the business model is and what the technology is ultimately completely irrelevant. We're coming into an era where all these things, there will be more and more of these things coming through, and we need to find a way of processing that. By experimenting with it, by figuring out the relevance. PFM is interesting because you said it was supposed to change users' behavior, right? The whole point is behaviors change for a variety of reasons, and we need banking products that actually recognize our changed behaviors. So the sequence of steps might have been a little bit different, but ultimately, it has to come down to the fact that if you cannot respond to a change in behavior that you recognize, and change of behavior accelerates much faster, at the same time technologies develop faster, then you're kind of missing the boat. So as an organization, you need to have that mindset of you need to prepare yourself for these permanent challenges and changes and being able to respond faster. And yeah, if you do it old school, it's just not going to work.
In 2019, shouldn't it be again intrinsically within like the DNA of the CEOs of this world and the leaders?
The new leaders have a different perspective, absolutely. But again, I don't think the leaders are the problem.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you so much for your time. I can't believe last time we met, we remembered, was at 2012 in Singapore, in Thailand, in Bangkok, up on a rooftop. Anyway, that's for another day, but anyway, I'm so happy, Nektarios.
It's really good to see you too, Christophe.
Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we'll get you back sooner than later because the industry needs you and the corporates need you too.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. Merci.
Cheers.